In this section, we're going to talk about conventions. Conventions are stylistic guidelines that make no difference whatsoever to the compiler. The compiler does not care at all. However, programmers who read your code, or you reading your code later, will notice that it's easier to read if you follow a standard set of guidelines of how to format and name your code. Identifiers, for example, ought to explain in a human readable way what that variable is being used for. If I were keeping count of events that have occurred, a variable with the name count would make sense. If I named it X, it would work, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. Nobody particularly knows what X means. We usually use that in algebra as a variable that just means some value. For a program, that's not good. Style. New data types, about which we will learn later in the course when we study classes, start with uppercase letters. And if there is a second or subsequent words, we capitalize each of those words. You will notice that when you use the Java provided libraries. Method names start with a lowercase letter and use what's called camel case. That is, no spaces are involved, and each subsequent word has the first letter capitalized. That's true with the class name, except it starts with uppercase. Variables start with lowercase and use camel case for any subsequent words. Constants are an odd convention, but they're very readable. We make them all uppercase, and if we were to have a subsequent word, put an underscore to separate the words. In most cases, do not use one or two letter identifiers. They don't tend to make a lot of sense. There are obviously exceptions. If we were to create a data type called point, which represents an X and a Y coordinate, it would make a lot of sense to have two data members, X and Y, representing the particular offsets for that point. That's true because in algebra, we use X and Y to represent that. So it follows intelligibly from that. But if we were counting the number of boards in a picket fence, the letter M, for example, doesn't make sense. We don't normally do that. So ensure that your names make sense in relation to the problem you are solving.